We should show a very welcoming, warm presence that clearly displays technological leadership. And so trying to tie both of those pieces together is important. We want a space that is inviting, that customers can feel they can stay comfortable at, that they can linger through, but that where they turn, they find technology. They find technology that helps them connect with clients. They find technology that helps them in clinical practice, and we want it to be a warm, welcoming, inviting space. That to me is probably the single most important thing to get customers talking about their needs. And so I think the technology was part of the draw. I think the marketing efforts ahead of time to draw customers in was a draw, and what we had to say was important. The company was just coming off the heels of going direct, which drew customers in because they were interested in that. We also made major product announcements, which drew people in. The idea also was that we had booths across the aisle from one another, and it was a big congregating space on both sides. And so I actually felt like that contributed to the busyness factor. Was there's places to turn to. Right behind you there was somebody at Idexx, right in front of you there was somebody at Idexx, and not necessarily a buddy, but there was technology, there was space to meet, etc. And I think having a big gathering area was particularly helpful.
My expectation for brand marketing, it's a good question, is how do we communicate more in a personal way with our customers who we are and what we do, and doing that in a very engaging, memorable way. So I think from a marketing perspective with brand, sometimes it's very hard to communicate the passion that we have as a company. And when you can be at a trade show and you can interact with Idexx employees, you can interact with the products, the speakers, the medicine, the clinical, it really elevates the opportunity to really engage with customers in a different way that communicates the brand that we couldn't do with traditional digital marketing or ads or things like that. So it's really that personal engagement and memorable experience of who Idexx is.
And by sort of saying that the booth itself actually needs to bring the brand to life, that the aspects of the physical structure and the design of the booth needs to give everyone a sense that we are the industry leader, that we're innovative. It should be flexible to allow for different brand campaigns. It also, we want it to be welcoming and open so that people feel like they can come in and that there are centers of conversation and places where people, it needs to be a place where people also feel comfortable and where conversations can be had. Again, in order to bring our entire brand personality to life. Those are the aspects or elements that I would want to see.
Obviously, on the product side, when you do have those new, exciting innovations, something that's truly different that's just coming out, whatever it may be, it's certainly an opportunity to highlight that, but in terms of how it fits in with the larger brand.
And I'll probably give examples of things that I've seen not work in the past or they don't work well is when someone elevates the name of a specific product over the brand. Then there it's a confusing message in the booth. Are they the, product XYZ, because sometimes the product name becomes more of the company than the product brand, and it's limiting when you have a wide, variety of products. But I think there needs to be some level of product or service messaging within the booth.
Extremely professional. So I felt really good about that. I think we're building from a concept and a model that is working for us. Stations, technology displays, open area. I really did like the idea, and I'm not the expert in these kinds of things, but the idea that we had coffee and things like that for customers, it was important actually, and it gave us a greeting space. It gave us something that customers are looking for. The theater was packed every time, so theater for education is something I would not want to lose. We always have new innovative science to talk about, and our ability to put that on in professional display in a case-based atmosphere. is the way the veterinarians learn and the way their healthcare teams learn. I would not want to abandon that. Just the direct exhibit hall and they're in lectures, they're going through cases. And so the fact that we take a case from the lecture hall and move it to the booth experience and we keep it in an appropriate time length is an attractive element. So I like that, and I cannot imagine we're not going to have more educational content to deliver in years to come. And so having that capability within the context of the booth, I think, is pretty important. And then obviously we need nice big display areas to showcase the technology itself. Whether we're doing that for investors and analysts in that segment with those stakeholders, or we're demonstrating for customers and their healthcare teams, we need that type of space to be able to show and interact with the technology. Ours is a hands-on business, and so to be able to show that, I think, is important, and to also demonstrate our level of fluency with technology. So having screens, touch screens that slide, that we show command in, projects us as having colleagues who are entirely comfortable in the technology space, which is a very good part of the brand experience at Idexx. Not everybody is. We need to show them that we're entirely comfortable displaying information that way, emailing things that way, etc. So I think that was important too.
You know, we're an innovative company, and we're on, I think, the cutting edge of veterinary medicine, obviously with diagnostics, but also with software and innovation in general. So I think it really needs to come across cutting edge. And you know, you think about even technology where you'd be wowed, and maybe it's not technology of our actual instruments or what we provide, but the way we display them or the actual experience. So if you think about the touch screens we have, you know, how can we make it even more innovative and cutting edge? So I think, you know, we're known to be the leaders in innovation. We've brought every diagnostic innovation to the market in the last decade. How do we show that beyond just our products in the technology we can have in the booth, so they get that wow experience?
I think you want to invite people into the company, and as we're doing this year, excite people about our new products and new innovation. So they really should go hand in hand. There should be one or two exciting new innovative products.
I think technology and use. So what's really the use of that technology? What's the benefit? Whether it be, and I know they do case study challenges in our booth now, even though we've not seen it, I've heard about these. But really, what's the benefit, the end result to either the user or the user's, in this case, patient? Another thing that I've seen too, that really leading edge companies that are always developing the next wave of products or solutions is they often have like a private technology suite within the booth, and that's like a big deal to get invited to. It's kind of like this would be like, you know, the future of veterinarian care or something like that. And I've seen that work pretty good in other industries when they really want to talk about something that's the future.
And then also I'm kind of thinking of in terms of technology that the trade show attendee could interact with as a way to experience the company. So, you know, sometimes when you're at a show and everybody's different, some people are introverts, extroverts, you might not necessarily want to, you walk into a booth and there are a lot of vendors staying there and you feel a little intimidated. But if you see something like a touchscreen that you can go interact with and start to learn from, and then somebody comes up and talks to you about what you're doing, I think that is an interesting way for folks to learn and to interact with the booth, and then ultimately interact with people in the booth, and I've seen that be interesting. I've also seen at a previous company where the equipment was much larger. You know, we don't have anything that's much bigger than a kind of a large bread maker, but where equipment was larger, I saw some.
The coolest thing, and there was a couple of different things, but the one thing that stuck out for me is they had a display, and it was, I think, an MRI machine, where they had like a human being that was laying in it, and he looked like a live person, and his eyes were shut, but he had kind of REM activity, and you really thought it was a real person, but it wasn't. It was a dummy that was mocked up in a way with like real hair on the hands and the eyelids, but you could see how the person kind of fit into the MRI, and how, you know, you could do certain things to help, I guess, the experience for that patient. So I've never seen anything like that on the veterinary side. And one thing we always miss at the trade show, I think, is bringing animals in.
And it relates back to product marketing too, because there's the physical product, and then and that's one way to show it. But I recently was on a trip to New York where I went to the Barbarian Group, and they have this incredible new technology that they developed called Center Stage, and they developed it for Samsung. And it's ginormous touchscreens. And immediately, my first thought when I saw this, I was there about our digital strategy, my first thought was the trade show and the trade show booth, and how it could be so fantastic to have technology that was mobile and portable and flexible that could be used to promote the products when we weren't doing a big shebang. They're virtual showrooms. So there's these giant screens where you can touch on it and you can open any refrigerator or any product in their line, and you're literally inside of it. It's hard to describe, but they've had success bringing this into big box stores, so that because there's not enough floor space to showcase all the products. And they saw, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but they had much better success using this technology and bringing people into their product experience via the technology. I'm sure you're talking to a range of people, and I'm going to fall over here on the continuum because I've not been in the field selling the products. I don't have as intimate a knowledge of the customer. So there will be customers who want to touch it, who want to see it, but that may be something that a sales rep can follow up on, especially if you have the technology that can easily let someone register for more information and have that go directly to the sales rep.
I think when you isolate analyzers to have something just focused on Catalyst 1, that's an isolated product display that would be inconsistent with the way that product would fit in a clinical practice. It would sit alongside a hematology analyzer or an IVLS system. And so the degree by which we line them up, much like they might be on display at a veterinary hospital, to me is far easier for the customer to envision. They kind of close their eyes and say, what will this look like at my hospital? Oh, okay, right, this is going to be here, and it's going to be about this big, and this is going to be here, and it takes up this much space, and yeah, my counter is about X wide, and you know, I think it's better to display them that way than to treat them as product heroes in isolation when they're trying to really envision what the landscape would be at the hospital. So I think the present day display, I think, more facilitates that than product heroes, and I don't think the customer would really assimilate that as effectively in their hospital vision as we do it today.
You know, when you walk in and you see whatever pharmaceutical company it is, you know, they own the stairs and they've got signage everywhere and they've got footprints along the floor. I think Abaxis, who's a direct competitor, has done a good job with customer events where I'll always see they have some big event with some star or something that's meaningful for their best customers, and you kind of look and you see the room, and we don't seem to have those things. We've done them, I think, with some success in the past, but we haven't done it to that level of engagement. The other interesting thing Abaxis did was they have analyzers for the human side, so they offered blood testing, so you could go to their booth and get your cholesterol tested or something like that. So they had some kind of engaging aspects that they were pulling people in for, and we've done kind of the cookies and the beverages and things like that, but I don't know if we've kind of taken it to that level of a customer experience to that point. Sales number one, what you can actually get closed at the trade show, because that's where the action is, and I think that's what motivates the sales professionals. And if you're selling things there, you know that you're having an impact immediately, and you're really able to kind of move the sales process forward to fruition. I think leads are huge, but it all depends on how we follow up with them. Just saying we got X amount of leads isn't really enough. It's like, what converted? How did we move the process? Are we following up on them? So capturing the lead, but then also following up with, well, what happened with those leads. I do think having impressions is important, the time that our customers spend in the booth, exit surveys, things like that, what was their overall experience.
You want people to walk away from the trade show, from your booth, not forgetting where they were, that the Idexx booth was awesome. You want them to be talking about how great the experience was. And again, you want them to be saying that the things about the experience that you want them to be saying about the brand. wow, that was so innovative. They're so cool. They're doing such amazing things. It was so welcoming. It was so friendly. I had a great time. I could have stayed there all day. I felt like I was with a friend. You want the booth experience to replicate what you want people to feel about the brand. You want them to take that away.
To me, it's kind of like a building block. I mean, it starts with awareness. So you have to generate awareness at the show, and hopefully you have that buzz created prior to that to even get them to come. Awareness will often lead to conversations, and conversations kind of lead to leads. And awareness is really hard to measure. That's like the hardest part of marketing campaigns, I think, is building awareness and whether or not you're effective. And a lot of people don't like it because they can't say, I got, it's not quantitative sometimes, but it's really important. And I'm not quite sure how you would build that into a trade show booth, but it's definitely got to be part of the trade show strategy.
The buzz at Starbucks. You always want to be that booth that people are talking about. And we've all been at plenty of trade shows before, and you hear if there's a booth that's hot and cool and has new product or things have been presented in a really clever way, it's all anybody's talking about.
Yep.
And you can certainly walk the show floor and see where people are going. And I don't know how you measure that. I have seen in the past worked for companies where you actually within the badges that had the RFIDs, and when people spent time on the show floor, you could measure the amount of time that they spent within a booth. So that was always a great indication of what areas of interest, what areas of the booth piqued folks' interest the most.
The first is that Idexx is prominently featured at the show, and their support for veterinary medicine is unquestioned. I saw Idexx where I wanted to see Idexx. I saw them on the trade show floor, I saw them in the educational circles, and I saw them professionally representing themselves in nicely professionally branded ways. I am not about what I call the snow cone concession sponsorship. I am an anti, gimmicky person in that area. Somebody can clearly have their sign on the bus. Somebody can have their name, by the candy concession. I don't want us to be there. I want us to be in the educational, professional space. I want to be on the show floor and then professionally displayed as somebody who is proudly supporting veterinary medicine's relevance. Big message number one. If we have individual product highlights that we are doing, like SDMA, we did at NABC, I want them to clearly remember that this was the event where I was exposed to this innovation from Idexx. Not every year is going to be like NABC where we have SDMA, but if there is an event like that, I want people to say it was a professionally memorable experience from that standpoint. And at the end of the day, is I learned more about Idexx than I knew, or they told me something I didn't quite know.
How we're perceived within the market as leaders and how we compare to other manufacturers, I think, is another kind of success factor. So how does our booth and our space look compared to other leaders within the market?
So again, I said it, I'm going to repeat it, but I'll say it again because you want them. I would want to be, if I was standing in the Gaylord getting a cappuccino, what I would want to hear someone say is, did you go to the Idexx booth? That was amazing. It was so cool. It was so interesting. They were so friendly. It was a fun, welcoming place to be. Wow, I learned a lot about X. I didn't know that was happening in the industry. So again, that they gained insight, they gained knowledge. They felt like we were an innovative company and that we were, without question, the leader in our space. The other thing that I would say that maybe isn't one of the questions is that I would want the design of the booth should reflect our design aesthetic and be clean and modern and contemporary, but not so that it dates itself and not so that it's cold. So you want it to be clean, modern, sophisticated, and make people feel like this is a place that does cutting edge technology, that's modern and contemporary in everything they do. But at the same time, bring in the warmth with our red colors in the seating or in the red and the rich red and the warmth of that charcoal sprinkled throughout in a way that makes it, again, friendly and warm and welcoming at the same time that it's conveying that it's state of the art.
You want them to experience the brand. You obviously want them to walk away feeling that we understand the industry, we understand their profession, we understand them, and that we have the most innovative products to help them care for their patients. But then you also really want them to experience that the people. You want them to have a nice experience. You want them to have had some good friendly interactions with people. You want them to have learned something from people that they have that they've met with.
And I would agree with everything Eve just said. It's not any singular thing. Emphasizing, especially this year where we're going direct, the quality of salespeople, of sales professionals that will be calling on them, and that their knowledge of the market, not just our products, and their practice. You know, they can almost do, they're a consultant, let's say, to our customers, so they're true partners. And I think hopefully if they experience that, especially competitive accounts, clinics, I should say, that they can come in and then leave and say, wow, they're not just order takers.
For the absolute avoidance of doubt, we've got to have the products there. We want veterinarians and their healthcare teams opening drawers. We want them loading slides. We want them pushing it in. We want them to see and feel the technology. Our technology is so well developed, it's so well engineered that to display it virtually would never do justice to the hands-on nature of veterinary medicine. This is not a virtual business, it's an actual business with durable goods, substantial products. To feel the engineering, to feel the technology, to load the clips is all part of the client experience that they will have to get used to in clinical practice. Where better to do that than with us there, and to show and project our own comfort with that, because we don't do virtual installs, we do actual installs. We don't have virtual clips, we have actual clips. We don't have virtual connectivity, we have actual connectivity. So I guess I feel very, very strongly from my perspective and what I do here at Idexx, that to be able to show that and display it, and more importantly to show that our colleagues are entirely comfortable with that, is an important part of the customer experience I wouldn't want to miss. If you're looking for educational content that's virtual, sure, we can show that. But not where an analyzer is concerned, not where a digital system might be concerned.
I want them to feel that personal connection with Idexx, and they have it with the sales rep, especially if it's their sales rep. I think that's the easier way, but for someone who's a competitive account, so they don't use a reference lab, they don't use our in-house instrumentation, for them to walk away and say, wow, this is a whole new company. This is a new company or a new side of Idexx that I've never seen or experienced before. I think we're always known for scientific, clinical, like I said, that innovation side. I don't think anyone would be surprised. I think that's the expectation. But the passion we have and the impact that we have to the veterinary profession and to patients at the end of the day, if we could really have them experience that on that level, that to me is that's the holy grail.
We want to be seen, we want our brand to be part of their experience at the show, to be a large part of the experience at the show. It's an opportunity for us to speak to our customer directly when they're all in one place, and we should take advantage of every opportunity we have to bring our brand to life for them through all of the sponsorship marketing opportunities. One of the core identities of the Idexx brand is that we are the industry leader. And industry leaders don't have a chintzy napkin, and that's it. Industry leaders have banners and pillars and gobo lights, and there's no question that they're the leader because their presence is so strong. So it would seem to me, I would say I would rather have really cool technology showcasing all the products and lots of branded marketing and promotion, and have our dollars go there rather to shipping all the products, if I had to allocate funds.
Yeah, I guess it depends on if it's part of a bigger plan. Is it is it part of an effort to drive people to your booth so that you can have a certain conversation? I know there's some things planned for NAVC where it's not just a coffee cup, but it's a neat message included with that about coming to the booth. I think anything that can start a conversation and that can drive people to your booth so that you can have that in-person conversation, those kind of things are really good.
Register, you get your bag full of a zillion things, and you're lucky if they look at them. But when it comes to, say, a room drop that's specific, like, a little heart on your pillow or whatever, where they're going to come in, they're going to see it, they're going to pick it up, there will be some interaction with it, and it's a little bit more personal.
Yeah, I think they go there for education, right? So understanding how to apply our solutions, how to help save lives. So I want them so motivated, whether it's clinical, from a medical perspective, efficiency. If they're coming back to their practice and sharing what they learned, and they have some simple tips and tricks on how to implement that, like on day one, when I get back on X day, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be so excited. I'm going to walk in the door. We're going to have a staff meeting, and we're going to do these 3 things. That would be ultimate, whether it's medical, I think, or from a process protocol perspective.
And I think we made a big decision in EBC. We had a very, very prominent display, whether it was in the room settings as it was elevator wrap, it was in room drops. I mean, I think it all has an additive effect. You couldn't say if this disappeared, what would happen. You have to look at the entire strategy, and I think we've decided to become more prominent. As a company that works now directly with veterinarians, I think it's important that the Idexx brand be very visible across the profession. When you had distributors advocating for you, it was probably less important because they were going to dial up your advocacy. But now we're responsible exclusively for advocacy of Idexx products and services, and so I think we have to have a very substantial, far-reaching, multidimensional touch. So that would include pre-show marketing, that would include being highly visible at the event itself, obviously a professionally featured booth trade exhibit area, and then probably most importantly is I want to make sure that we don't lose sponsorship visibility in the lecture circles. I think if we say we're going to give back and we're going to be a science-based and technology company, we have to be sponsoring significant continuing education tracks where we are featuring leading-edge diagnostics as a part of working up individual cases. So I would never want to lose that. I want to be able to proudly say we sponsor this many hours, we make this many hours available of experts at those events. But I think as a direct company, this is the place to be big. Thinking the educational sessions are designed to create demand by helping teach veterinarians how the use of Idexx products and services help elevate patient care. When they do that, that inspires those that were at the lecture to come and inquire more wherever that may be. If it's at our booth, that's fine. If it's at one of their local sales professionals, that's fine too. But at the end of the day, this is a scientific community. We are trying to create demand through education. That period, period. That's what we do. And so I wouldn't want to dial down our emphasis on demand by teaching. That's how we advance fundamentally is with education.
Awareness, I think number one, it's a smaller kind of subset of the customers and marketing, but you get a different, unique opportunity to share what that is, and sometimes that generates a lot of interest where they you can almost use the customers there as a force multiplier. So once they get back home, like I said, within their practice or with their peers, they can share what they learned, what they heard, what they saw. So I think awareness is a big part of it. The other thing is, what I've noticed is customers attend that show. That's very hard sometimes for a sales rep to get in to see them, to demo them, and to have them with some hands-on time with the product. So I do think whether it's virtually or real hands-on time, kind of having them experiencing it, demoing it, picturing how this actually can work in their practice. So not only just seeing it on the table, but how do you kind of bring it together where they can visualize this as having an impact on their practice? They can visualize this being a part of their workflow moving forward.
It's how much, if we want to increase our brand awareness, if we want to be seen as the industry leader, if we want to again assert that forefront position, then we should be owning the things. We should be owning the real estate that makes that statement. It's as similar to The location of our booth and the size of our booth is also another indication of who we are. It's one of the reasons to do the branding work at the trade show is because you have the audience's attention. When they're getting a magazine or they're getting a direct mail piece from us with our branding on it, it's in the midst of clutter. When they have their personal lives and they have their practices and they have all kinds of, these are events where they leave their practice, they leave their everyday life, and they come and they focus and they're immersed in what is going on in the industry, and that is the perfect moment. We have their attention to deliver the messages we want them to have all year, to launch those messaging platforms, and then to follow up with them throughout the year to build on them and to sustain them. The trade shows are the perfect place to launch our messaging plans and to do our branding because the audience is focused.
I've been in this industry for I don't know how long now, I guess a dozen years at this stage. I don't want to date myself. But in any event, Hills, I think, always draws people in as well. But Hills draws people in because Hills makes it known that they're a veterinary profession focused company. I mean, Colgate does this very, very effectively. And so what Idexx can do is probably learn a lesson or two. We don't have to look like Hills, feel like Hills, or anything like that. But they make their presence known, that this is a place to display your advocacy for the veterinary profession, and they're prominently featured in all of the right circles for their business. I think we just got to make sure we're prominently featured in all the right circles for us, which is, in my mind, it's in the educational track, on the show floor. The first is that Idexx is prominently featured at the show, and their support for veterinary medicine is unquestioned. I saw Idexx where I wanted to see Idexx. I saw them on the trade show floor, I saw them in the educational circles, and I saw them professionally representing themselves in nicely professionally branded ways. I am not about what I call the snow cone concession sponsorship. I am an anti, gimmicky person in that area. Somebody can clearly have their sign on the bus. Somebody can have their name, by the candy concession. I don't want us to be there. I want us to be in the educational, professional space. I want to be on the show floor and then professionally displayed as somebody who is proudly supporting veterinary medicine's relevance. Big message number one. If we have individual product highlights that we are doing, like SDMA we did at NABC, I want them to clearly remember that this was the event where I was exposed to this innovation from Idexx. Not every year is going to be like NABC where we have SDMA, but if there is an event like that, I want people to say it was a professionally memorable experience from that standpoint. And at the end of the day, is I learned more about Idexx than I knew, or they told me something I didn't quite know.
I come back to our customer base is very literal. And I think they want to have that interaction. I think the challenge that we have is we have so many products, and it can't be about every product, all over the booth and having 15, Catalyst DXs there. So the challenge is, how do you kind of bring the literal product experience and the interaction with that in a new dynamic way? So like I said, whether that's touch screens or something totally different, it's kind of like when you go into Best Buy, and you're looking for a new washer and dryer, right? They have the washer dryers there, but they don't have every kind of model that they offer and the feature benefit. You almost can't get a real sense just looking at a washing machine, what it's going to do and how it's going to benefit you. So what do you end up doing? You end up going online or trying to research it. How do you kind of bring the wow in the trade show floor to get me excited that even if I'm not going to buy it now, I'm going to want to go and research and find more information? Or how do you on the trade show floor get the wow and have the ability to dive deeper if you wanted to get into, like, here's the washer working, this is how the clothes are cleaner, this is how it fits into your laundry room. It's a really big challenge, I think, to not just show the box, but really kind of how that experience is going to impact them and their patients, their practice, and their clients.
I've seen a lot of different things, and I would say social media is fantastic to incorporate into the show, especially if you get the attendees to engage and in the booth, it's another way to get them engaged, to capture their information, and for them to share out, to become your spokesperson, to share out the messages that you're delivering. So social media, us tweeting from the floor and that kind of thing, that's okay, that's right. What we really should be doing is having the people involved and doing survey. The sky is the limit with what we could do with the right technology.
I think there's a way that we can combine both. So this year, it was strengthen the bonds, but it was our innovation. You know, I think we did a really good job of bringing the brand to life in a way that really demonstrated the product and the innovation of what we brought. So I think we did a good job of balancing that. When they come to the booth, what's the first thing they say? What's new? Show me what's new. So we're never going to get away from providing that, but how do you kind of house it and put it together in that experience where they're getting what they want, but they're really interacting with Idexx in a different way, where they're walking away saying, yeah, I know you're the leaders, I know you've got the leading clinical diagnostics, I know that you've got the best products, but wow, I didn't know you had X, Y, or Z. I didn't know you were doing this. I really feel like you're a partner with me. I didn't know that Idexx did. I think that's the other benefit of bringing the brand in. It's not just the product. I think you need the product to a certain level, and that's their expectation. But if they really have a personal, memorable experience, that's going to last far beyond, because they don't even know the name of the product. They, you know, at the end of the day, they kind of remember partly what it did, but they're visiting how many other booths and seeing how many other products. What do they really retain after that? I think they retain the experience and what we make memorable, and that's about our brand and who we are.
Two things. It drives awareness and it helps create demand. That's it. That is all that it is. So demand in the educational settings and awareness in the trade show floor through professional prominence. That's it.
So they're awesome. They have to be aligned with the strategic business opportunities. You have to really spend the time to make sure the content and the speakers are relevant and are meaningful. If you don't do that, you're never going to get the ROI. But they're critical. I mean, that to me, besides the brand experience, is probably the second most critical item. Is how, because that is part of the brand, right? It's part of the expectation. But then it's like, what did we really do to help save animals? What did we really do to make them a better practitioner at the end of the day? And it's not the booth. It's not having, you know, cocktails or things like that. It's the content and the medical education.
I think it should be members of the Idexx commercial team, sales professionals, veterinarians, and if we have customer advocates present, that would be the third. That's it.
I think you want to have them be true to the brand. We're not just going to do goofy things and throw it out there to have our name everywhere. I think we really want to pick the right sponsorships. You'll know it. I think you'll see it where people are going to be proud. Like if it's Idexx employees, they're going to comment because they haven't seen those things from Idexx before. So they're going to say, hey, did you see? You're going to have people taking pictures and being like, look, we're on the elevator over here, or this was Idexx, and like things they didn't expect before. But they have to be done in a tasteful, brand appropriate way for us. We want presence. We want awareness. We don't want it in a kind of tchotchke kind of way. We want it more in a meaningful way that elevates the brand, and that really, to me, if it's complementing all the other things we're doing, it's that one other personal experience where then they get the email, then they see the ad in a publication or social media, and they're relating it back. So it's hard to kind of tie it in, but you start to get this kind of elevation overall of their experience and perception of Idexx.